Hey guys, it's Austin here again. I'm going to do another winter bass pattern video for Lake the Ozarks. This is going to be about bluff ends and bluff walls. So just going to kind of skip over going over the lake in sections. If you want to see that, I'll put a link in the description to my last channel swing video. If you just watch the first like minute or two of that, I go through like kind of breaking down the lake into different sections. But I will start with first, what is a bluff wall and a bluff end? So I like to use Navionics web app for this. I oftentimes just put it on the regular Navionics for this portion because if you go to sonar chart, sometimes it's like sensory overload. There's just too much data on the screen and it's a little harder to pick stuff out. But if you notice, you have the main river channel here, and where it swings up on the bank, these are all big bluff walls. So a bluff wall is just a vertical rock wall, and they oftentimes have indentations like this, little pockets in them. Sometimes they have little outcroppings such as this. They have rock slides, they have holes in the walls. And then a bluff end is, well, it's the end of the bluff. So here's an example of a bluff end. This one's a little bit more tapering. I will go find you a little bit better one right here. So here's an example of good bluff ends here. So you got a small bluff wall, and then you come to the end of it. You've got your quick drop off, sudden drop off, and you've got a shallower, a little bit flatter side. Same thing over here. Oftentimes on these shallower sides is accompanied by large boulders and big rocks. They can be good in the wintertime because as the sun, if it's got a real sunny day, the sun's beating down on those bigger rocks and kind of hold a little bit of heat, and sometimes this bass will slide up from suspending in the deeper water. They'll get up here in the little bit shallower rocks and you can catch them. So I'll start on showing you some more bluff ends, and then I'll move different parts of the lake kind of, and then I'll go to talking just about bluff walls. So I'll go up in the graboid here. You don't have to go far. Here's another bluff end. Classic example, you got the close contour lines, indicates deep water, sudden drop off. And over here, spaced apart, gradual, flatter, okay? Let's see if I can find one more up here. On the lower end, that one's a little bit more tapering. I made it to the dam. Here's not a bad one. So you can see this one here has a little bit of a flat spot, almost like a little hump almost where it comes up, and then it dives off into the deeper water. Let's see, I'll show you an example. So I normally look at the main river channel, like I was saying, and you can follow this around, but that's not always the case. You can find them without that. So like here's an example, nice bluff wall, and it comes down to a bluff end. This one definitely has a flat spot that's got a little bit more that really will have a sheer drop off, like a tabletop is what I would call it. Got some more bluff ends down here. Two of those. There's definitely one there, one there. They're all over down here. But I will go down the Niagara now. This just doesn't have as many pockets, doesn't have as many coves, so there's just not quite as many bluff ends down here. There's plenty of bluff walls, but just not as many bluff ends. So here's another example, pretty pointy one here. Comes out. You can go up the river. You can find them there too. Let's see, here's King Bluff. Same thing, you got your river channel, and you got your deep water, close contour lines. This one's got a little bit of a flat spot too that comes out. So that's something else you can look for. Like I said, if you just take the time to go through Navionics, you'll find a lot of bluff ends. You could spend a whole day running just a portion of the bluff ends that Lake the Ozarks has to offer. But with that being said, I'll move on to the bluff wall. The bluff wall has a lot more real estate than the bluff ends. Bluff ends, you know right what you're getting to. You can fish it and really focus in on one spot. As the wall, you've got, this is a long distance here. So the best way I like to break these down is look for irregularities. So I'm looking for indentations, or the little like points here that are created, little outcroppings, maybe here. These stick out a little bit. I'm just looking for anything that's different. Graph down it, see if you see any stair-step type ledges, things like that, that you can fish, or anything that might stick out more underwater that you can't see with your own eyes. But what I mean by the stair-step type ledges is if you were to pitch your jig all the way up against the wall here and let it fall on slack line so it falls straight, it might fall down 5 or 10 feet and then it stops and it lands on like a little rock ledge. And if you drug that jig out a little bit and then let it fall some more on some slack line, it might fall, another 10 feet and hit another lip, or it might just keep falling. So different spots of the bluffs will have different drop-offs and different ledges and stuff that stick out. So that's always something to keep in mind. Now with the bluff walls and bluff ends covered, I want to talk about other key factors. And I have wind, shad, additional cover, and then location. So the wind and the shad, I think, kind of go hand in hand. You've got the wind, I would prefer the wind to be blowing out of the north onto this bluff wall. That can help position the shad. Their food source, phytoplankton, is going to get blown here. Shad might group up, and then the bass, are not going to be far behind. But I always want the wind blown in on the bluff walls if I can. Like I've said before in the channel swing video, some wind even going down it I think is better than no wind at all. But if I can have it exactly how I prefer, I want it coming directly in on it. So that's kind of the thoughts on the wind and the shad. The shad are obviously going to suspend, usually out in the deeper water, over the deeper water, I should say. And then the bass are just hanging out, not too far away. Then I have additional cover. So you basically have two types of main cover at Lake the Ozarks. You have docks and you have brush piles. Well, I'll talk about docks first. You have residential docks like these stick out, and then you also have your wave breaks that people put in. Definitely can catch a lot of suspended fish underneath these over the deeper water. And then you have commercial docks. So here's another, this is a small bluff wall right here, and this is kind of a bluff end where it's very sudden here, but it shallows up. These spots right here can be very good to catch some bass, and the docks that come out very far like this, they give the bass plenty of area to suspend and over top this deep water however they want. And this is, when you're over the main river channel like that, if they're have the dam generating or something drawing the lake down, there's going to even be additional current coming right past these docks here. So that's something to think about. The next type of cover is the brush pile. Plenty of brush piles at Lake the Ozarks. Let's just say you go to this bluff end here. People can put brush piles. A lot of times I see them really close to the sudden drop off, like right on it almost, or just up on the flat spot just a little bit. And there's definitely big fish to be caught in those. And something else is the big rocks too, which I did talk about earlier, but I'll just reiterate that you can have a lot of big boulders and rocks up here on these shallower spots that are busted up, and don't be afraid to throw your jig up there in 5-6 foot of water, sometimes even shallower, or even your jerk bait, and you can catch some big bass doing that in the wintertime. You can also, don't forget about the brush piles on the docks. Like if I go back to these residential ones over here, you're not going to really probably have a brush pile out here in 60-70 foot of water, but people will put them up here in the little bit shallower spots than maybe 15 or 20 feet of water. Final thing I'll talk about is just the location of the bluff walls themselves, which is kind of goes hand in hand with the wind. So if you have wind coming in out of the west hitting these bluff walls here, this is where I would focus first. I would look for the bluff walls that are getting hit directly with the wind, as opposed to maybe say this one where if the winds come out of the west, it's just going to be going down it. Like I said, some wind is better than no wind, but I really try and get the location of my bluff wall dialed in. So if you have wind coming out of the south, I might focus on these type bluffs and these bluff ends with the wind really hitting them. That seems to have been better for us with the wind directly on them than with the wind just running down them. So Now that I've kind of gone over that and given you a little bit of how I like to go about it, how I dissect the lake a little bit, we'll go into the baits that I like to use. So I'll start with the infamous A-rig. I like to throw this first if I can, just because it's, you can cover a lot of water with it. You can also catch a lot of big fish. This is a non-bladed version because we were throwing these down at Table Rock and we switched to this on the last day. But I usually prefer the bladed version, especially at Lake the Ozarks, just because the water's not quite as clear as it is on Table Rock. Bait color, this is a shad color is what it's called. Some of these are falling off. They've caught too many fish. But this is a lot more of a natural color. But I actually did throw this last time I was at Ozarks and did okay with it. And Nathan, he was throwing the same thing or similar and did okay. But we usually try and start with this. It's good to throw over the, if you find brush piles and stuff on the bluff ends, and you can throw it, work it down deep. You can count it down to 15, 20 feet very easily and just cover a lot of water with it. White is also a good swim bait color up there, and these are Kitech 3.8s. This is what we were throwing also at Ozarks, but sometimes it's a little bit better to throw, a 4.3 or even a 4.8. But in the wintertime, sometimes it is good to downsize a little bit, and you will get more bites usually with a little bit smaller swim bait. But if you're looking for a real big fish, maybe move up. You can also throw a single swim bait. So just a Kitech here. Bluegill Flash, good color. I think you can catch fish coast to coast on this. Some heads you can pair it with is this is a jewel gem shad type head, and then this is a head that we are actually going to be selling before too long. It's kind of in the prototype version still. It's going to have a keeper on it and a weed guard, a wire weed guard, and a medium wire hook that is plenty stout enough to catch all the fish, whatever size fish you catch, and not bend out. But also, if you did get stuck in something, you can pull this free with braid and probably get your whole rig back. Because, let's face it, when you're fishing A-rigs, there's not much worse when you bust the whole rig off and you gotta retie the whole thing. But moving on from that, I will go to jerk baits. So these are actually two broken jerk baits with the bills, but this give you the idea. So you've got this is Ozark shad, mega bass color, and then this is a Spromic stick in a gold color. This gold color can be real good on sunny days, when the sun's high, not too much cloud cover. It gives off a lot of flash. And then the Ozark shad kind of flashes too, but this looks like a gizzard shad at Lake the Ozarks, so I feel like it's a good color to throw a lot. These you can throw, work around the big rocks that are closer up to the bank on the shallower sides. You can parallel it down the bank, give it some suspending time depending on the water temperature, obviously when it's colder. Water temperatures in the 40s, maybe start with 3-second pause if you're really moving around quick, but I usually go with like a 5 to 8 second pause in the winter and mess with your suspend strips and stuff like that. Here's an example of a small suspend strip on this, but it varies bait to bait. It seems like they suspend a little bit different. And something that you can use just to clean up the house is the old jig. This is a Omega jig, but I tied the skirt on myself, and I spidered it out, made it into a finesse jig. This is a 3/8 ounce, I believe, and then I've got what my famous trailer is, the old Crocagator ring craw. I really, really like those in the wintertime. Here's just another 7/16 that I tied myself. Nothing fancy with that. And then I've got just a regular old brush jig and what I call my Ozark craw type color. Green pumpkin brown and black. Tie myself. And then here's just a pack of the ring craws from Crocagator. These actually here, if you can see, they've got a little purple, green, and a little extra flash to them. But I oftentimes just use a straight green pumpkin, but this is something you can try on a little bit sunnier day to give you a little bit extra flash, or if water's got a little bit more color to it. Those are the baits that I normally like to throw. You can also put a shaky head here and trailer it with a ring craw, or you can trailer it with Crocker Gator makes a swamp bug, which is like it's like a grub, but it's got little like extra legs on it. And I don't have any affiliation with Crocker Gator. I do know the people that run it, I believe, live at the lake, and they seem to be very nice people. But I don't have like any sponsorship with them. I just really I like the baits they make, so they've done good for me. That's pretty much the gist of what I throw in the winter time. They're going to be eating one of these baits somewhere on the lake at a certain time of the day. You just got to figure out where and when they want that exactly, which can be a little bit tricky in the winter because I will say there are times that you will go to bluff ends and bluff walls and there are fish there 100%, but you cannot always make them bite. So that's part of fishing and something you just have to deal with. One other thing that I do not have, that I don't do a whole lot really, is big swim baits like the glide baits. I know that has become a little bit more of a popular thing at Lake the Ozarks, but that is something that you could throw on the bluff ends and the bluff walls and just let those glide real slow. It looks like a big gizzard shad, and I'm sure you can catch some monster bass doing that, but I don't know if you're going to catch a lot of numbers. But that's kind of a niche type thing in itself. So hopefully this helps you catch a lot more fish, or maybe opens your eyes to a pattern that you haven't run before. And I'll be looking forward to making another video. I think I'm going to do points next for winter fishing, and then I plan on trying to make the same type of series through the spring, summer, and then fall, just to kind of have a year-round type patterns for Lake the Ozarks and things to look for. So I hope this helps, and thanks for watching.